This episode is sponsored by Coastal Leather Supply, created by Leathercrafters for Leathercrafters, supplying premium leather, tools, and all your other leatherworking needs. Specialised in vegetable tan leather such as Buttero, Pueblo, and many others. They ship internationally and are trusted in the Australian and New Zealand leatherworking community. Visit coastalleathersupply.com.au. Welcome back to another episode of the Joseph M. Leather Podcast. In this episode, I talk to Jayson from Artisan Straps. Artisan Straps specialises in handmade leather watch straps. Based in Sydney, Australia, Artisan Straps offers customers with ready-to-wear, made-to-order, as well as full customised watch straps. Using an array of leathers, from premium Italian and French leathers to shell cordovan, kangaroo, crocodile, alligator, and so much more. With over 200 5-star customer reviews, Artisan Straps also offers lifetime warranty on his watch straps. Welcome, Jayson.
Thanks for having me. Um, yeah, it's I've seen your episodes a few times. I think with like the other level crafters in Australia.
Yeah,
Um,
it's been a pleasure talking to all those other people. And so, how did you get into leathercraft?
um, so I actually started Leathercraft not through Leathercraft, but through my love for watches.
Yeah,
So I was a university student a few years ago, and I guess like as a university student, you don't really have much money. I was doing a part-time job at the local cafe. Um, so yeah, I couldn't buy expensive watches. I bought one big purchase, which was like a few $1,000s for a dress watch.
mm-hmm.
Um, and I think I wanted to get more watches, but I kept being bored of the watch itself. Um, and I couldn't buy more because people have like big collections of watches. So the way I went about it was to get new straps, and that just transforms the look entirely.
Yeah,
So I did that. I bought a load of straps from like overseas sellers, like on Etsy. I really appreciated like these independent artisans who made like one-off custom straps, and especially for me because I have a small wrist size. It's hard to find off the shelf straps that actually fit my watch.
mm-hmm.
So I did that. I spent like a few $100s each time on a strap, and I'm like, hang on a minute, I'm spending like $1,000 on straps each year, and I'm like, oh, I should just make my own. I
Yeah,
gave that a go. It took me like 2 years, and I couldn't even make a single strap that looked good because for watch straps, you really need to focus on the details, like the
yeah,
stitching and the shape. It's very important for it to be symmetrical, and just doing that, like I really struggled. But after just looking at YouTube videos, looking at other people's works, figuring out like slowly how to do things, it kind of all came together. I started selling straps to my friends who liked watches. I knew like some guys from the watch community, and I guess it took off from there. So when I first sold straps, it wasn't very good in terms of the quality, but as you make more, you get more practice, you start to refine it a bit more. I guess that's how I eventually like developed my skills. So yeah, it's kind of a very weird path to go because watch straps are very like intricate. They're very
yeah,
small, so the details do matter. Whereas like a lot of people start making like card holders where the cuts are just completely like square. Whereas like watch straps, you need to cut the shape to be like round at the tip. You gotta fold it. You gotta fold it evenly so it looks symmetrical. Otherwise, when it sits on the watch, it's like a bit off balance.
yeah.
I guess like that just doesn't look right. So I guess that's why it took me over 2 years. Um, the way I started was I went on eBay. I bought like a set of tools, which is like a cheap, I think like knockoff from China. They're like $40. You get a skiving knife, you get like those Japanese pricking irons. Um, and then I went to like Bunnings to get some glue, and then I came down. I got like a cutting mat, sat down, started cutting, traced a strap that I had. It turned out horrible. Like my stitching, I used thread that was 1 millimeters for like I think 3 millimeter spacing irons.
Oh,
So
yeah,
the stitching was just like
yeah,
super fat
yeah.
and it didn't look good at all.
Yeah, I
Um,
started off with like 1 millimeter thick thread.
yeah, so then I did that and then just looked completely horrible. I gave up a lot. So I think when I first started my skiving knife, I never sharpened it for the first 2 years. So when I first started, it was very easy to use. I was like, oh yeah, it's very sharp to cut through leather. But then after a few months, it got completely blunt. I didn't know that you needed to sharpen a knife. So I got very frustrated trying to skive down leather. Um, And I guess like just through like watching people's videos on YouTube, that really helped me develop as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it's interesting watch straps because I think when I made my one last year, I bought like a Citizen watch because I wanted a watch and just to take the strap off of it and then make like a custom made strap. So I bought this
right.
Citizen watch and it came with a like it looked like an alligator crocodile printed strap. Like it wasn't legit crocodile. And yeah, it was very interesting how I noticed how finicky they are and how much like the detail has to be like to a T. Like your stitching has to be like so symmetrical because like any little wrong stitch or anything, it just shows up like so obvious. Whereas like if you're making a huge product like a bag, if you miss like if you ruin like if you make a mistake on one stitch, it doesn't ruin the whole. It's not like an eyesore in the project. It's sort of like a on the
Yeah, that's
side
right.
there.
Yeah, so like the details are like very, there's a lot of things in consideration when you're stitching as well. So
Yeah.
I think when I first started, the stitching distance from the edge was not consistent as well
Mm.
because I couldn't really line up my pricking irons to a line. And then the other consideration is having it like the stitching symmetrical on both sides of the strap. So like sometimes one is like in the middle of the other, so it doesn't like line up properly.
Oh
So
yeah,
then
yeah,
you
yeah,
have to
yeah.
get it to be like mirror on both sides of the strap.
Do you start from the top of the strap and then work your way back?
I actually start from the tip of the strap, so
Okay.
I think it's easier to get a like at the tip of the strap, it's easier to get it to be nicer when you start from the tip
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah, yeah,
if you start from the top, once you get to the tip, you find that you might be like half a hole, and then you would have to use like a very like in between smaller dense stitch,
mm-hmm.
which doesn't look as good.
Yeah,
Whereas if you start from the tip, you can get it to be like pretty mirrored, perfect
yeah.
like every single time.
Do you do a round hole?
So I started off doing a round hole, but then now I do a vertical hole. Um, I I don't think it makes a difference.
Yeah,
It it's just easier. It doesn't look any different
yeah, yeah,
because I just use the two-prong pricking iron and I just prick it the first one
yeah.
and then it works fine. So um, yeah, so I don't think it matters if you use a round hole. Most people do use a round hole,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I didn't find it to make much difference.
Yeah. I definitely like the padding, the raised straps. Like the one I got is a raised strap. And
Yeah.
so when you started, was the Apple Watch out?
Yeah, the what Apple Watch is I think it came out like long time before.
Oh, okay, yeah,
So I do like some straps for the Apple Watch, but I think the majority of my customer base is more those like fine high-end luxury
yeah, yeah,
watches
yeah,
because people are, I guess, more willing to spend as well. They're more willing to spend on personalized custom straps where they can get it to fit your wrist size.
yeah,
That's one of like the biggest considerations people put into buying a strap. Obviously the quality as well, but it's hard to find like a strap that fits you perfectly. So I
yeah,
guess the product that I'm offering hits that target market.
yeah. And that was the thing as well that I found with watch straps was like with a belt, it's pretty easy to find your size. Whereas like with a watch strap, like how do you know what like is there a measurement you can do on your wrist to be able to find
Yeah, so
your
for
correct
watch
size?
straps, yeah, for watch straps there are two sizes that you need to like consider. So the first one is where it connects with the watch itself. And that one's pretty easy to measure just using like a ruler or a caliper. The other one is your wrist size. So the way that I get my customers to measure their wrist size is to use a piece of string or a piece of paper. And I have a size guide on my website that I use that works 99% of the time. And they use that just to get a rough guide of the strap they need. The other way that I get my customers to do to get the right size is to use their current strap. And they can either they wear it on their wrist and they can see how like if the tongue sticks out too much, you can subtract length from it, or if you find it too short, you can add length, and that usually works as well.
Okay. Because how much should the taper go? Because I got a watch strap, and because I was unsure of tapering others, how much taper should you have?
I think it really depends on the watch itself. Sometimes the thicker watches um, don't need to taper as much, so 20 millimeters to maybe 18
Yeah.
millimeters. Having a bigger taper usually makes it more dressy. So like those dress watches, if you want like to wear it for formal attire, having a bigger taper from 20 millimeters to 16 millimeters, for example, is good to make it a lot more dressy as it's not too thick.
Yeah.
So it just depends on the watch itself. If you want it to be more dressy or if you want it to be more casual, then just looking at the taper makes it look a lot more different, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. What's the maximum thickness of a watch strap you should aim for? Like a 3 millimeter is a good thickness.
Yeah, I think in terms of the thickness, because I do customize the thickness really depends on the customer's watch. But I think the main consideration is the thickness of the leather around the spring bar hole where it connects. If you have it too thick, you can't actually connect it on the watch. Otherwise it just presses against the watch.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's like from the part where it connects to the watch, being able to match that to the watch is important. So I've had like some customers have like really, really thick watches. They're literally like a slab. And then so you need to make the strap like taper in thickness from maybe like 4 to 5 millimeters to 2 millimeters at the buckle.
Yeah.
So it really depends on the watch.
Mm-hmm.
But usually the watch straps I make are around like 3 millimeters in thickness and they
Yeah.
taper to 2 millimeters just because it makes it a lot softer. And then you can it's a lot easier to put it on and off.
Yeah. So do your customers send you their watch to make the strap, or do you just make the strap?
No, I just make the strap. They usually send a photo of the watch or
Yeah.
they just order directly off my website.
Yeah.
But usually they just if they need some help, I offer like a customized service where they can reach out to me. They can ask me like what options are available, if they need help measuring, for example. So then I try to like give them information or advice and guide them to the correct option, which I think is like I think they value that as
Yeah.
well.
I'll ask you. I'll actually ask you on watch straps because I'm not really like the watch area. I'm not like an expert. Like that's one thing
Yeah.
So what's like a pretty good watch to like if you wanted to start off in watches? Because I got like a Citizen watch, which is like a gold watch, but I'd like to get like a silver watch because and
Yeah.
like put up like a black band with it. What's like a
Like an entry level watch
yeah, or
that's like quite
even
respectable, I guess.
like a yeah like a like what's like a Buttero watch? If that like put it in leather terms, like what's like a Buttero watch? What's like a Shell
Yeah,
Cordovan watch? Like what's a
I think if you're starting out like entry level, Citizen is definitely like a really good brand. I think they were Japanese, but I think they got acquired by like a Swiss company. But so I think Seiko is Japanese. They
okay? Yeah.
make they make very like cheap budget watches that are automatic in movement, so which means they don't need a battery to run. So you can just like shake your wrist and the watch will power up.
Oh
So as
wow.
long as you
Yeah.
wear the watch, you'll never have to worry about the battery running out. So I think Seiko is the equivalent of like a Botero kind of leather. It's a good entry level. It's quite well respected. It's been around for like many, many years.
Yeah.
A lot of people, think like people really like Daniel Wellington, but it's very like very cheap and the movement inside is like cheap $2 Chinese like movement. It's completely horrible. It's
Yeah.
just marketing. So a lot of people you see just have Daniel Wellingtons, but they're not good. It's just people like the very minimalist look and there are a lot of options like even from Seiko. If you want to move up a bit from the Botero to move into I guess something more expensive. You
Yeah.
can look into some like more entry level brands such as um let's say maybe like Longines, for example. This starts to be in like $1,000 or so. And then maybe Seiko also does watches in that price range now. And I think these brands are more like respectable in terms of um having more history and also the movements they use are actually quite good.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so I think just in general, if you wanted to get a first watch and you want something that's good, the things to look for are an automatic movement. That means like it's mechanical, you're not using a battery. And then I think that's the main consideration. And
Yeah.
then just finding something that you really like in terms of its looks is important. If you want to go up even further up to like a few $1,000s, I recommend the Omega Speedmaster.
I didn't even know they had a automatic watch. So what? When you move it, it
Yeah,
it
so
just works.
so looking at the automatic watches, or so my one's mechanical.
Yeah,
So you can see the back of the watch.
yeah,
You can see the movement, and there's no battery. And the way it works is that um, as you move, there's a rotor that spins around,
yeah.
and then that powers the watch itself.
That's
So you
so
can
cool.
just
Yeah,
yes. So it's like it's purely mechanical, and then people assemble these like movements by hand. So then I find I think it's kind of like saddle stitching, for example. It's
yeah,
like done by hand, um which I quite like. I think the watches that start in the few $100s with a mechanical movement, they're machine assembled, but they're still very like robust and they last you like many, many years. You don't have to worry about like
yeah,
battery running out.
yeah.
Uh
Well, so what's the watch strap that you have? The watch that you just had that you showed?
the watch strap.
I mean the watch.
So the watch here is a Grand Seiko. So it's Seiko, but their high-end line.
Yeah. Okay. I
It's
see.
a
That's the thing. I have no idea when it comes to like you could show me like three watches and it's like yeah they're all,
Yeah, so I've actually got the Omega Speedmaster here. Yeah, so it's a chronograph, which means it can tell the time. It's basically a stopwatch.
yeah
And yeah, so it's a mechanical, which means it doesn't need to use a battery. And when you look around at the back, you can see all the movements, the
yeah
pieces. And then the finishing on the back is also something. It's also like an art of its own.
yeah. So like very high end watches. They're all mechanical. Like
I think like 95% of them are mechanical. There
yeah
are a few like quartz. So quartz is what they call using like a battery.
yeah. My ones are quartz.
Yeah, so then that's the name. But then yeah, there are a few quartz ones which are like really, really thin
Mhm.
because with mechanical ones, they're a bit thicker because they need to like encompass all these like parts, moving parts. So it does make the watch a little thicker.
Yeah.
But it does add substance to the watch, so it feels more luxurious, I guess.
So if you have the watch just like on one of those stands or something, in that those protective covers that you sell, over
Yeah.
time will that just slow down and stop if it's mechanical?
Yeah, so then mechanical watches generally have a battery life between maybe like 40 to 80 hours.
Yeah.
So it only lasts you maybe 1.5 days to 3 days. So you would have to keep wearing it to be able to like power it up. So that's the thing that's annoying about mechanical watches. If you have like a lot of watches and you can't wear them or to keep them charged, you would have to set the time again.
Yeah.
So every time you wear it, you would have to set the time, which is a bit annoying. And I think with the pandemic, I don't really go out as much. All my watches now, they just sit in the watch rolls. And basically, I have to set the time. And then all the times are literally set at 10:10, which makes it a little symmetrical.
Yeah.
It makes the watch look nicer when it's symmetrical.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. So like how do you go in summer with a watch strap? Because I noticed that when I was wearing my like it feels weird to have like a leather band in summer.
Yeah. So I think in summer, because you sweat a lot, people prefer to use bracelets.
Yeah.
Uh, The other alternative is to line the leather straps using rubber at the back.
Mhm.
And it also, I guess, prevents it from like staining, which is good. The leather we use at the back on our normal straps is actually a French calfskin leather. It's called Zermatt, which makes it very water resistant. So a lot of like cheaper watch straps, the back is like a micro suede or a calfskin that just absorbs the water.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah.
then you get like sweat stains where it turns like black or very dark, and then it just smells horrible.
Yeah.
Whereas with this, it's very water resistant, which makes it like I guess it makes it quite good.
Yeah.
So you don't have those stains, and like every few weeks you can just wipe it off if you do like sweat a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I lined mine with kangaroo, like blue kangaroo.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was my lining because it was thin.
How did it go? Did it
Yeah, in summer, I just had to take it off. Like, it was just too irritating on my wrist.
yeah. I
And
think Kangaroo. I do use Kangaroo. It's a bit. Was it Vegetan your Kangaroo?
yeah, I think so. Yeah,
Yeah. So the Vegetan Kangaroos tend to absorb the water,
yeah,
the sweat, which I think like over time it does get quite annoying to wear because it just slides around in your wrist as well, and then
yeah,
it just feels
yeah.
a bit uncomfortable.
Yeah, so with a well-fitted watch strap, it won't slide up and down. It will just stay in the one spot.
Or I guess like depends on like
Yeah,
the size. Like if you get a perfect fit using
yeah,
like the holes, it should be good. Even in like summer, your wrist does like expand and like shrink a bit. So then the way that we overcome that is to have the holes of the watch strap that you punch where you put the buckle in. You have those sit a little closer to each other so you don't have like the problem when you're in between the holes.
yeah,
So you
yeah,
either have it too loose or too tight.
yeah.
Um,
I made mine
yeah,
with that Russian leather.
Russian calf.
Yeah, that's my one, and that's patinaed quite well actually.
Is this the one from Baker's?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
It's good because
yeah,
you only have to use like a little strips.
yeah,
It's not like a wallet where it's like use or like a bag where you use like a whole. I just had some and I was like, oh, I'll make a watch strap with this, and yeah,
yeah.
it's pretty.
The yield is really great. So I've had a lot of people just in the Leathercraft community. They message me asking me if I had any like scraps I can sell. But I don't really have scraps because with watch straps you only use like a very small amount of leather from the hide.
Hmm.
So like I'm pretty much able to turn any like scrap that I have into watch straps. So I
Yeah,
don't really have scraps.
yeah. I want to use some of my like the belt blanks that like because you make a belt or whatever, but you have the belt will be like a certain size, and you have like you might have 30 centimeters or 10 centimeters just extra just sitting there. And I don't have a bench splitter, but it'd be nice to be able to split them down and use those for watch straps
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
yeah, because there's so much it's bridle leather, but when you split it down, you can still make really nice straps with bridle leather.
yeah, and even
So
if it's like, I think when you split it down to be quite thin, it might be a bit stretchy. So you can just reinforce it using like
yeah,
salamander, like bonded leather, just in between the layers,
yeah,
just to add some like structure to it, which I think is important for durability in the long term.
yeah. I was gonna ask you that. Do you reinforce your watch straps?
Yeah, we do. So we use it's actually a synthetic. Actually, it depends on the watch strap itself. Sometimes we use bonded leather, which is just like veg tan scraps, and they like bond it together to be quite firm. And
Yeah,
that's used in between to actually reinforce the strap to prevent any stretching. Because a lot of the times when customers wear their watch straps, over time from like taking the watch strap on and off, it tends to stretch a bit. So just to prevent the stretching. We
yeah,
also use Velodon, which is a synthetic like anti-stretch. I wouldn't call it a paper. It's a synthetic material that is used by Hermes, and they use it to prevent stretching on their straps. And
mhm,
I found that to be it's quite good if you want to keep the strap to be thin. But
yeah,
the issue with using Velodon is that it's very, very hard to glue on.
yeah,
And I guess like I think one of the most important things is being able to glue it properly.
yeah,
And that leads on to like edge finishing as well, which is like one of the important parts.
yeah. Exactly. Does the bonded leather have to be thick?
Sorry, what was that?
Does the bonded leather have to be thick?
No, it's actually only 0.3 millimeters thick,
Yeah.
so it's
Wow.
very, very thin.
Yeah.
But then it adds a lot of structure to it.
Yeah. I guess like what's one of the thing what's one thing that surprised you about leathercraft?
I guess like I imagined it to be a lot easier because when you watch
Yeah.
videos of people doing it, you're like, yeah, I can do this easily. But then it takes a lot of time to refine your skills to the point where you can actually get the details to be like very well done. So
Yeah.
when I started off by watching like YouTube videos of, I think, Han Atelier, which is,
Yeah.
I think he's Korean, and then he makes wallets and stuff. And looking at his videos, it looked like it was very, very easy to do. It's like he makes it like every process, every step is just like you cut it. Like cutting seems like a very easy thing to do, but then when you actually do it, it's actually very hard. In cutting like straight lines, for example, everything just like moves around. It's very hard to get it to be perfect. So
Yeah.
just like I
Or
actually imagined it to be a lot easier. And I guess that's why I was really frustrated with myself for the first maybe 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
just being unable to like produce something that I'm happy with.
Yeah.
Whereas like they just make it seem so easy, I guess.
Yeah. It's and also like if your ruler leaves marks on the leather and it's just
Yeah, like when I first started, I would accidentally like I would one of the things that I found to be the hardest was edge creasing. So I bought one of those
oh yeah.
like heated edge creasing machines. Um, I completely finished the strap. I pieced it together. The strap was completely symmetrical, and it was time to edge crease it, which is next to the stitching. So I was doing a straight line. I didn't realize the crease had like I guess come off the edge, and I guess
Oh
I just like creased it to the side, and then
yeah.
it just left a mark, and I'm like, oh, it's such a beautiful strap, but then I had to like I couldn't sell it anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, so there was a lot of wastage when I first started. Um, it's just like these things, you just like scratch it or any like small mark or anything, something like any mistake, you accidentally punch, you line up your pricking iron, and then as you punch it, you take it off and you're like, wait, it's not even where I lined it.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
like completely off.
Yeah. Yeah, with to avoid that, I like to go to because when you use the pricking iron, you usually go from like the last hole.
Yeah.
Sometimes I go from like the second to last hole, so because it
I,
stops it
I
moving.
usually do second to last or
Yeah,
third to last.
yeah, because it
The
keeps.
only time I use first, like the overlap by one, is when I'm turning like a corner
Yeah,
or
yeah,
it's not a straight line.
yeah, because it's so easy to like move it on the side,
Yeah.
and it's just yeah, it's So what are some crafters you're inspired by?
Um, for watch straps in particular, there's a lot of like independent watch strap makers in like Indonesia, so like Hymer Leathers. They do a lot of like very interesting ones where they dye their own leathers, and then I think like just looking at their work, it's very refined.
Yeah,
So that's one of them. There's in Indonesia, there's also Artisan Leather. He does like very nice work as well. Just overall in terms of like more general leather work, I think in Japan in Niwa Leathers, his works looks really nice. Like not all his stuff is hand stitched. I think he does machine stitch a lot of the stuff, but then like the work, just the overall look of his like stuff, it's not completely like fine leather crafting. It's a mixture of like rugged and like luxury.
yeah,
So I think I really like that look where it's like not too refined, but also the details are there. Um, and also in like Singapore, there's quite a few good leather crafters, such as like 74. Yeah, that's his name.
yeah.
So he does like really nice and refined like watch straps for very like high-end watches. So he
Mm-hmm.
does like watches that are a few like hundreds thousand of dollars. Like being able to do stuff for the clientele there is quite interesting.
Yeah, have you
I think
noticed? Sorry, go on.
I think it's because the Singapore watch market is very big.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of like expats there, which means like people from overseas go there to work, and
Yeah,
they're all like pretty rich. The tax there is a lot lower. He's able to do watches like straps for those watches because those clientele are like quite, I guess, well off.
yeah. Is it like the more expensive the watch gets, the more exotic the watch strap is? Is that
I wouldn't say that. I think with high-end watches, people tend to go for alligator or crocodile as it's considered like the most luxurious leather around or available. So I guess people tend to just go for exotics. But I think with high-end watches, some of them are more like intricate and the detail. I think it's not just the details itself, but also the fact that they have like weird shapes. So some watches like I have a Ming here. It's called Ming. I'll take the watch strap off, but you can see how the leather at the top is curved.
oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so doing those for like a lot of those high-end watches have those curved ends,
Mm-hmm.
and that makes it a lot harder to make as well. But yeah, so these like high-end watches tend to have like features such as this.
So that's not a buckle end.
Sorry?
Is that a buckle end? Is there a buckle like a
It's where it connects to the watch.
oh where it
See
connects?
how like
Oh yeah, that's okay.
So the way they do like the reason why they do this is that it gives an integrated look with the watch. So
Yeah,
it looks like it comes out of the watch. Whereas like for my other watch here, you can see how it's just straight ended.
yeah, yeah,
You can see there's small gaps here.
yeah,
So there's just like small details like this that make it like look more, I guess, luxurious or high end, and
yeah,
people tend to appreciate that.
yeah. That's cool. So you'd have had to make like an angle and then fold the leather
Yeah,
around. Yeah,
it's a lot harder to make because I have a metal rod which is like curved to the curvature I want, and then it's basically like bending the leather and sticking it down so it matches the curvature of the rod.
yeah, and make sure there's no creases as well.
It doesn't tend to crease in that way because you're bending, the crease would be at the back of the strap, and
Yeah,
that's not too significant because you're not seeing it on the wrist. But just being able to bend it without wet molding, because I think if you are able to wet mold, it's a lot easier to just like bend the leather.
mhm,
So yeah, this was like quite challenging to do at
yeah,
first, but then as you practice, it just gets better.
yeah,
I think even then now, like when you buy like straps from like high-end manufacturers, their straps, the curve isn't even that even. So it just shows how hard it is to actually make these straps.
yeah. It would have to be quite thin to get around.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
around like 1 millimeters or just under 1 millimeters is
Oh,
ideal.
that's actually pretty good. That's not like point. I'm glad like 0.5 mil. I was thinking, but that's
Yeah,
good.
zero point 0.5 mil just makes it too thin
Yeah,
because
that's what
if
I was thinking.
it
Yeah.
would just be too soft, I think.
So how did you transition into exotic skins? Because I've the only exotic skin I've used would be kangaroo, if that's counted as one.
Yeah, I think kangaroo is exotic to everyone else,
Yeah, I was thinking that.
not
Yeah,
Australians,
yeah,
because we have kangaroo like everywhere. Well, I
yeah.
guess like we have a lot of kangaroos, but we don't see them in like you don't see kangaroos, but we do have a lot of them. Um, so exotic skins are like a lot of people with watches, they do come with like alligator or crocodile straps when you buy the watch, especially when it's more high end.
And
So I had a lot
that'd
of
all be hand stitched, high end.
no, surprisingly, all the luxurious brands, the high end brands, none of their straps are hand stitched. They're all machine stitched.
So how do they get the? Because they don't stitch through the keeper, so they have like two separate stitches.
Yeah, so the way the stitching goes to the keeper
Ah,
and then
okay, yeah,
they stop. The other thing is they can just stop where the keeper is and they hand stitch the rest.
yeah,
So then you can hand stitch through the keeper.
yeah,
But yeah, anyways, the way I got into exotics was I had a lot of customers come in to ask me like, "Oh yeah, do you do alligator? Do you do crocodile? Like, I love your calf leather straps, but then I just want something more like high end, something that feels like more dressy because alligator usually is associated with being like more dressy, more formal. So yeah, it was a bit hard at first to get crocodile or alligator.
hmm,
So the first time that I got alligator was through a supplier in Hong Kong. Um, and I made a really big mistake because I didn't know how to import skins at the time. So from Hong Kong, you needed a re-export permit for the alligator because the alligator comes from America and it goes to Hong
yeah,
So to get it to Australia, you need a re-export permit, but you also need an import permit to be applied in Australia. And I didn't know that at all. So the supplier told me that, yeah, I can do the re-export permit for you. It costs $70. And then, yeah, it will be good to send. So he sent it, he did that. He sent me two skins, which I paid around like $1,300 for.
whoa, that's,
Yeah, so he sent that to yeah, he sent it to me. I didn't know that we had to apply for a import permit. And then so when it got to customs, they're like, "Oh yeah, do you have an import permit?" And I'm like, "What's an import permit?" So then I went onto the website, tried to apply for one, but then they're like, "You can't apply for one retrospectively. So you can apply for it before
yeah,
it comes. You need it to be granted before it
wow,
arrives."
yeah.
So yeah, they seized the skins and they destroyed it. So
Whoa, what?
I was like, "Can you
Wow,
can you return the skins to the sender?" They're like, "No, we can't. If they're
wow,
seized, they have to be destroyed." So then I
whoa,
lost like $1,200 or so when I first started.
yeah,
I learned my mistake then, but yeah, it takes a lot of time for the permits to actually process. I think in Australia it
yeah,
takes around like 1 to 2 months.
yeah, wow.
So yeah,
Because yeah, I was gonna ask you that. Do you need to have permits to get exotics. I know you have to get like permits to get specific exotics in, but yeah, with alligator and crocodile and ostrich, lizard, you see, it all need permits for those.
Lizard, yes.
Hmm.
Ostrich for some do, but then in South Africa, because they're very well maintained and it's sustainable,
Yeah.
they don't need a permit for ostrich.
So what's the reason behind the permit?
I guess it's that it's from a sustainable source. Because if you want to be able to get a permit, you need to prove that you need to have I think you need the re-export permit as a copy as well. And the re-export permit shows that it's been exported like legally.
Yes. Yeah.
And when you
Okay.
do all these like paperwork, there's like a paper trail, I guess, just to trace like where the skins come from, that it's been like sustainably farmed and not like hunted from the wild.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. Wow. Did you get
Was
the Russian hide or the oak bark tan?
the oak one, I
Oh,
think.
okay. Yeah.
Is it? I can't remember.
Yeah. Okay. Because I know
It's like
like the Russian hide that's like $40 a square foot, and that's pretty.
yeah, it's very expensive. It's the one with the hatch grain that I
Yes.
got.
Yeah. Yeah. The Russian calf.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
expensive.
That's
And the
forty
only reason
dollars.
why they charge a premium is because it's apparently like a replica of the
Yeah.
leather that was found and they're able to like reproduce it.
Yeah.
But I heard it's like beautiful stuff.
Yeah. It is. The smell is very very distinct because they use like birch oil in the.
Right.
I think that's what the Russians used back in the day, and you get that real birch oil smell. But it takes a while to patina actually. Like it's a very slow patina.
Right.
But yes, well, what rich is really nice. So, what what colors did you get? Did you just get the?
I got I think it was black and then
Oh, you got the black.
and then it was like a reddish brown, like
Yeah,
mahogany color.
yeah,
I think just those two because those are going to be like, I guess, popular.
yeah. I got some of I got the brown, the reddish, and I got a sample of the black. So I got like a
Yeah.
little square like that big, and it's like I want to make a watch strap out of it, so
Oh,
because it's probably enough
yeah.
just to make the top. But yeah, it's a really nice leather. It burnishes pretty well as well, so you can burnish it.
It's veg tan, right?
It's like
Or
a
like a oak bark tan.
they use like three different three different mixtures of tannings, I think. So I'm not sure if they use like an oak, something else, or something else. It's like three, and
Okay.
yeah, but yeah, it is very expensive.
Yeah, it's like, especially like getting into Australia. But yeah, it's just like almost like double or even triple the price of like some other leathers you can get.
Yeah, I
But
know.
then everyone says it's like I've had a few customers that are like, oh yeah, can you do this? Um, this hatch grain like Russian calf.
Mm,
So then I was like, yeah, I might as well get it. So
yeah.
I'm getting it soon.
So are you getting full hides?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, because like back in, I think I going back last year, I wanted some for my birthday, and so that was like one of my birthday presents. I wanted some of it, and you can actually buy it by the square foot.
You can get it from like I think RM Leather Supply stock it now.
Yeah, but you can
But
only
then
get
it's
you can only get half and full hide.
no, they do panels as
Oh,
well.
do they?
But then they always sell out now. But the panels are so
Wow.
expensive. They're like $60 or something, 50,
Yeah,
$60.
because yeah, from the tannery you could actually buy it per square foot, and I remember I bought like I think 4 square foot, and then I think they've changed it where you have to buy like a certain amount. Like
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure if you can buy square footage anymore.
Yeah. And I think that's the reason why I like splitting because it also lowers the shipping cost to Australia. It's not as heavy.
Where do you get it split?
Or they have there's a guy in the UK that I know. So I think I think the supplier was like A&A Crack or something.
Oh,
And
yeah, correct.
they know a guy who can split, but they charge a bit of money.
Yeah,
But I think it's worth it getting split because the shipping cost here is a lot cheaper to get it like after splitting.
yeah.
So it's worth it and it makes it easier for you to work with.
Mhm.
The groove's very deep for the Russian calf.
Not really.
Because I imagine like the only challenge for splitting it would be if the grooves are very deep and it's very
Yeah,
hard to get an even like splitting.
they're not that deep. Like if you were hand stitching it, you wouldn't the stitch wouldn't like fall into one of the things.
Okay,
It's
yeah, it's not too deep then.
yeah,
I know like some skins, like shark skin, for example, the grooves are very, very deep. So
yeah.
they're like 0.5 millimeters deep, and then the stitching just like sinks in.
What's the deal with Stingray skin? Like is that like
Literally
yeah,
the
what's
worst the worst leather I can find. Like you can't I when I first got Stingray, I thought you can skive it. I had my like a skiving knife, Japanese skiving knife that's like $150. I skived it and I literally chipped the knife. And then I was
yeah,
like, I spent like 2 hours like grinding the knife just to get the
yeah.
bevel back. Um yeah, so I just like refuse to work with Stingray now.
So
And I think
you can't
some
even
people have told me they use disposable knives.
so you can't even use pricking irons.
You can, but then you risk the pricking irons getting damaged.
Like is it like hitting into a stone or something? Like the skin is
It's like a bone. It's like calcium deposits
yeah,
basically. So
okay.
it's like a bone. The skin is a bone. Yeah, so it's horrible to work with. And then like you literally don't stitch it, or you only do those like notches at the top just to keep it secure.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
absolutely horrible to work
Yeah.
with. Like when I didn't know, and then like the knife the knife's expensive, and then like just taking away so much of the
Mm.
like the lifespan of the knife,
Yeah.
just yeah, it was horrible.
That's interesting. Wow. Um yeah, it's yeah, interesting.
Have you
Well,
worked with it
no,
before?
I
Or
haven't. So how would they tan that?
honestly, I have no idea.
Yeah. Interesting.
I guess it's like dyeing the leather
Yeah.
because it's like literally a bone.
Mhm. So going back to that Russian leather. So did you buy full hides? Like two full
Yeah,
hides? Yeah.
it's actually still on the way, so I haven't
Yeah. I'll be
had a chance
interested.
to.
Let me know how big they are, because I've never seen what it looks like in a full hide. Like I've only bought like half a hide or whatever.
Right.
Um, yeah, it's good stuff. I like. It'd be good to make a bag out of it. I'm not sure how well it would go turned inside out, but like a bag that doesn't need to be turned inside out. But
Maybe like a briefcase because the
y-
Russian calf, it's quite firm, right?
yeah, it is actually. It's not like a Buttero firm, but it's not like a supple Essex firm. Um,
Yeah, maybe like a briefcase or something would be really nice.
yeah,
I've seen Nichols in London.
yeah.
He's done one with Russian calf, I think.
He did one out of reindeer that AA crack sell it
Oh, yes,
that
I
that
also saw
burnt.
that and I wasn't sure what the difference. I mean, the difference is that one's reindeer, one's calf, but that looked just as good.
Yeah, I think that's from another tannery, separate in Europe. But yeah, Nichols he does some really nice bags. Um
Yeah, his work is nice. Yeah, so like I think some of his stuff is hand stitched, like, but a lot of it is machine stitched. And I think it's just going back to what we were saying before the podcast about how like it's conscious of being conscious of time as well.
yeah.
Because if you were to hand stitch that bag, there's no way it will be worthwhile for him.
Yeah, well, that was my problem because I wanted to do everything like everything hand stitched. Then when I made that duffel bag, I did that by hand, and it probably would have made it quicker if I had like a bigger pony. Like I just got like
Yeah.
a little stitching pony, and that took an insane amount of time. And so one of the reasons why I bought the machine. But yeah, it's going back to that like how many people would care if it was hand stitched? Like out of the whole product is the stitching the main component of that product. Um, it's different for a watch strap because like a watch strap looks nice hand stitched, but it's like,
Yeah.
but a hand stitched bag is beautiful. Like my duffel bag, like it's the fact that it's hand stitched is like that looks really nice. But like I have another bag that I machine stitched and it still looks nice. It's kind of like the clientele I guess you're selling to, like if they really want that.
Yeah, you just got to charge for your time, I guess,
Yeah.
for hand stitching because it's a lot faster to machine stitch it. And
Mm.
as long as like your machine stitching can be very like the tension's even,
Oh, the
like they're
tensions.
all
It's okay.
and this like spacing is all
Oh,
even, then I think it should be all good. Like it's machine stitching is an art in itself. It's very hard to do as well, like
yeah,
to do well.
yeah. That's one thing I actually I've figured out only like recently because yeah, it is because I make it like making a bag and it's a canvas lining
Yeah,
and because like the the tension is like I got the tension I made like as good as I can get it. Like the you can't see the knot either end, like it's in the middle. Anyway, then I went to using like stitching through canvas, and because like the canvas is a lot more thinner, the stitching started to pop through the top of the thread on the thread. So when I was stitching it, and it's like you think that it's like just put it through, but yeah, it's all these like little things. Make sure the tension's right. Make sure like the um yeah, it's very interesting. But yeah, I set my space length the exact same as my hand stitch. So I stitch like 9 spaces per inch. So I just set the machine to that as well because like that's
right.
just what I like. So
Yeah, I like a lot of I've seen a lot of like machine stitch stuff that's really nice as well. So
mm,
like it's I think like the ordinary customer they wouldn't mind. Like it's a very niche market if you want like a hand stitched bag or
yeah,
I think watch strap hand stitched doesn't take too long because it's only like I don't know maybe like 100 stitches. So it's
only yeah
yeah so
yeah
it's not too much compared to like bags obviously. That's why you don't see too many hand stitched bags.
yeah
And then like it wouldn't the appeal if you're charging like $2,000, you're not it's very hard to sell unless like it's very like the market's too niche, I think.
mhm yeah.
You
One
don't have a
day,
bell skiver, right?
no, I don't. I use my friends.
Oh, you have a
I
friend. You're
I
lucky
go
you
to
have a
his.
friend who does Leathercraft.
Yeah, I do appreciate it because it makes it makes a huge difference for like piping and like yeah and I say to him like if you ever need to come around and use my cylinder arm, you're more than welcome. So
Oh.
just
Does he also do leather work or
yeah, he
he just
does gully leather.
yeah, because I'm thinking of getting a bell skiver. I
Mm,
just don't know which one at the moment.
yeah,
Like I can obviously get a Nippy or like a Fortuna, but then so expensive and like the shipping cost is insane. It's like a few
yeah.
$1,000s.
You can get two different types of bell skiver. Like you can get like a single roller or a double roller. So like double rollers like for like thicker leather, like for like bridal leather. Because you have like a single roller to like if it's like for everything that you and I would do, we'd probably just use a single roller. Whereas like you can get like a double. I don't know how a double roller works. Um, but where I got my sewing machine, I got mine, and I asked them if they do bell skivers, and apparently they do. They do like a nice little package, but I think it's don't quote me on it. I think it's like $2,000 or something.
Yeah, I
Which
think y-
which
I
I don't think you're gonna get a cheap bell skiver.
yeah, they're all looking to be around like $2,000
Yeah,
for the 802, like the equivalent of the replica.
yeah,
So I think like Leffler, because I contacted this company called Landis International. They sell bell skivers,
yeah,
but they're actually run by Leffler's Leather
yeah.
in Melbourne. So they contacted me, and then the quote for it is around like $2,000,
hmm
and then plus shipping plus GST, which comes to like three
Oh
thousand
yeah, don't you
dollars.
love when they add this like oh it's just before GST like and it's like
It's fine for me because I have to like pay GST back because I collect GST to my for my customers, so it's okay for me as well because I have to pay it back anyways.
yeah
Um, but yeah, it's not a, it's a big investment as well.
yeah.
It's hard to like learn about it because there's not too much information on it.
Did you say the 801?
I want the 802 because
Okay,
I think yeah the 801's a cheaper model, the older version.
yeah
The 802 the 802 I think some brands have like 3-speed motors as well.
yeah
Um, so you're just learning about it. It's a lot of information to take in as well.
yeah. See with bell skivers, I just what is an 801? Like, what is an 80? It's like it's all
Yeah, it's you have to actually research it to be
yeah,
able um to actually know what you're looking
yeah,
for. And I'm quite picky as well, so
yeah.
it's gonna take me some time to like settle on one.
It was the same with the like when I was looking at my sewing machine. Like when I was, it was just like, where do I start? Like, you want a sewing machine, and it's like, well, which one? And it took so much research, and um, yeah, and then I'm quite happy that with the one I got. Got the
Which one did you get? I was looking at
cow,
sewing machines.
yeah, Cowboy CB6900.
I have no idea, but I
It's
assume
a
like cowboy.
cylinder. It's a cylinder arm, but it's good because it comes with a flatbed. Like only a little flatbed. But Steve, he said to me, like he has like an engineering friend who can. So like he said that you just go to like him, and he could just easily make you like a bigger flatbed. So
Oh, okay.
it's actually it's really versatile. So that's the one I got.
Right, yeah. Because I was looking at sewing machines, like the ones that Hermes use. They use like German ones, like Derkop, Adler. Like
Yeah,
they're like $10,000, and I'm like, that's expensive.
yeah. I know there are because with machines you can just get like a different needle. So my needle it makes it go from left to right. So like when you hand stitch, it goes from right to left. But my
Can you get a needle that's to match the hand stitched?
I think it's harder for the machine to go from right to left. Like you can actually get a needle that goes from right to, but it's not. It's actually not as it's not as sharp as a hand stitched.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
but it's actually like the left to right stitch. Like this is here's a Hermes one. So like mine sort of looks like that. I'm not sure if you
yeah.
can
They
see.
do the. It's
It's
you
like
can
a
see it's like a reverse iron kind of.
yeah, but like it's actually it goes right to left on the rear side.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, the annoying thing with the machine is like sometimes it can leave marks on the leather from the presser foot.
Oh, okay.
So I think you can loosen it, but
I'm not too
underneath,
familiar. I don't.
yeah,
I don't. I've never used the machine to stitch before.
yeah. Oh yeah, Hermes. So how much does their watch straps go for?
Around like $400.
Yeah,
So like triple the price of what I sell it at.
it still actually looks pretty nice. Like even with a
Yeah, no, it's very nice. Like it's very refined.
mm,
Um, the work it's very nice, but I just don't think it's worth the $400 considering like it's machine stitched.
yeah.
But it's obviously because Hermes is a big brand, so they can charge that.
Oh yeah, you can see so like where the keeper goes. So as it approaches the keeper, oh, I'm not sure if it's gonna is it gonna focus.
Yeah, it becomes hand stitched. Like they
Yeah,
finish it off.
yeah. There's hand stitched.
You can give it a try on your machine next time. You just like leave the thread longer,
Yeah.
and you just maybe like get like a reverse pricking iron or something if you want to maintain the stitch.
Mm. Yeah, I got reverse pricking irons. That's really smart. Yeah, wow. It's hard because you like that's the thing you wouldn't even notice that either. But you can tell if you zoom in on the image, you can tell there's like a tension. Like if you're getting really finicky, you can tell there's a tension difference between the hand stitched
Yeah, you can
and
see that the top one in particular, it's a bit bigger, and then once it gets to the end, it's a bit tighter.
yeah. That's just us.
That's also the same for their back stitching at the top. They do like triple back stitching,
Yeah.
and that's the same thing.
So I asked you on edge paint tips because I've actually started edge painting,
Yeah.
fortunately, and I've been using Gian,
Giardini,
yeah, that one.
the one with the blue stripe.
Yeah, that one. Yeah,
Yeah.
and been using an all, but like I've noticed that it's been quite interesting because you'll get like, you put your first coat on, you put your second coat on, and you get like that ridge in the middle from like how it dries,
Yeah.
and then yeah, it's been actually quite annoying to be able to get that perfectly smooth edge. Like if you put alcohol on the edge, it like helps it cleans it up a bit.
Oh, really? Yeah. I think like some people use like to hide that. Some people I know use like acetone just
Yeah.
to like make it more matte, but then the ridge is still there. So from my like experience, what I found is that the reason for that ridge is actually because of your gluing. And that
Okay, yeah.
goes back to saying like why I don't like synthetics. So you need to glue it very, very well. Otherwise, if it's not glued well, the edge paint will just dip in the middle to create that ridge.
Yeah.
So the way that I edge paint is that I first use a primer, which really adheres to the leather.
Hmm.
The second one is a filler. So I use Unitas, which is I think it's like a North American brand. So I do that, and then the filler actually prevents the ridge.
Yeah.
So instead of being a like sinking in, the filler just sits on top of the edge
Yeah.
rather than like normal edge paint will just like flow into the ridge.
Yeah.
So you sand that layer and it gets rid of the ridge. And if you edge paint on top of that, it becomes like very, very smooth. So it's like completely flat.
Yeah.
Um, but the most important part is definitely gluing well. So making sure you glue well. And then I think that's the foundation for a good edge.
Yeah. Because yeah, I do have a primer, but I haven't really used it. Well, I've only used it probably a few times, not very often. But so you found that with the primer, you don't really need to apply a lot of coats with the edge paint.
The primer is mainly like very, very thin just to make sure the paint like sticks on for a long time.
Yeah. Okay.
Especially with some like waxy leathers like Hawaii and Chrome XL.
Hmm.
Otherwise, just like edge paint just peels off from it.
Yeah. Okay.
So then, yeah, so the I use the filler to get the smooth like surface.
So what's the filler?
It's literally just called like filler. It's a thick edge paint, but it doesn't
Oh,
really
okay.
sink into the like if you have gaps, it fills it up
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
makes it nice and round.
Yeah. So that's the edge paint.
Yeah, it's an edge. It's a clear edge coat, and then you just paint the colors on top.
Oh, really? Okay. So
Yeah.
primer isn't okay. Yeah.
So like the filler basically is a primer. So I think the way that they advertise it is that they advertise the filler as a primer, but the primer is basically for round edges.
Hmm.
So sorry, that's a bit confusing, but as in the filler makes the edges round, and
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
regular,
Yeah. 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 Sorry. Yeah. Because the one that I have it's a filler, but I've just called it a primer because that's what I thought it. Yeah. Yeah. It makes the edges.
so
So you put like a thick. You sort of put like a thick coat of primer. I mean of
yeah, that's
filler.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I just do that, and then basically usually it only takes 3 layers because it's already like very sanded, very smooth before I apply the color.
Yeah.
So it's only 1 layer of color. Or sometimes if like I don't know if I sand too much, the color comes off, then I apply another one.
Yeah.
So like the max I apply is 4 layers. And like I think to other people, it sounds like 4 layers is a lot of work. Like they're like, oh no, damn so much. But then like for me, because I'm rotating through like 5 or 6 watch traps at a time, it literally just like one, the next, paint the next, and then by the time I'm done with the last one, the first one's already dry.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm kind of rotating through that.
I know with it's kind of like I want to have like no exposed edges on like projects now, just to avoid edge
Yeah.
paint. Like just have edge paint handles and that's it. Just like
Yeah, a lot of people find edge painting hard, but I'm the opposite because I've burnished once in my life and I've never burnished again.
really, yeah.
Yeah, because I think takes a lot of sanding.
Yeah, well,
Like,
I don't sand with my burnishing. I as long as you get like it's the same thing. It's like as long as you get a clean edge with like trim allowance, you're pretty
yeah,
much good to go. Like yeah, I don't sand on mine just because I don't really mind the matte finish edge anyway. So it's not really
yeah.
with So how do you finish your edge paint? Do you just sand it and then leave it?
I've got a
Oh, I use the
heat
fillet too.
machine
Yeah,
and I use the fillet juice to like just to like polish it,
yeah,
and then it turns from like a matte, complete matte to a semi matte. So
yeah,
it's not shiny or it's not like completely matte.
yeah,
And then the way I finish it is I have some paraffin wax and I just like rub it quickly, and then I use like a cloth and just like rub it against it, and it creates like a nice like subtle shine to it,
Yeah.
but it's not like super super shiny.
What is paraffin wax? Is that just like a synthetic
It's a
wax?
white, it's
Yeah.
like a
So it's
clear, it's like a candle wax.
yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. With
People use it to make candles. Yeah.
yeah. So you don't bevel your edges?
No,
Yeah. No.
I think that if you bevel the edges, it creates like it doesn't create, it removes the hard edge with the
Yeah.
leather, and then the edge paint would spill over to the front a lot easily, like more
Yeah.
easily.
With
And
sorry, go on.
yeah, so with like my round edges, I create the round through edge paint rather than like beveling the edge,
Yeah. Yeah.
which I like.
With my bag handles, I've like is they're beveled edges. So you, which is I should try it without a bevel just to see if it would make a difference. Because
Yeah.
if it would still be sharp on your hands if you're carrying it. So
Yeah, I think it's fine for me because if your edge paint is more round, it
yeah.
kind of like it kind of flows into the leather.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas if you bevel it, it kind of like removes the hard edge. And I just don't, I haven't got like as clean results
Yeah.
beveling.
Yeah. Um, what's the most expensive watch strap? So what's the most expensive watch you've made a strap for?
Oh, that's a good question. So my brother has a Langa one, which is around like 50K.
Wow.
There's a customer that I know, he's got like a very like niche watch. It's very like it's bespoke. It costs around like 200K for it. Yeah, I just made a crocodile strap for both of them.
Yeah.
So it's like the strap itself is very basic. It's very thin, soft, and just being able to like fit it on perfectly.
Yeah. With
Like there's a lot of like more expensive watches out there. Um, I think like with the watch world, there's like secondary market prices and retail prices. There's some pieces that are more desirable and you can't buy them retail anymore. So the secondary price is maybe like 5 times more expensive than the retail price. So like some brands like FP Journe, for example, the watch itself is only like $25,000. Um,
only.
but then I think the secondary market price is like 120K.
So is that for the strap?
No, no, for the watch itself.
Okay.
So then like in terms of like what's the most expensive watch? Like FP Journe, I made a few straps for them, but they're like the secondary market like value is so high now. So I would consider like it's kind of like yes, it's not an expensive watch, but then what it sells for is a lot.
Yeah. So they've bought it for like 25,000, but it's just increased over time.
Yeah, because the supply of it is so limited. It's like one
Yeah.
guy making it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Wow. Um, with because with the filler that I used when I made my Russian calf um watch strap, I should have I think I have it. I should have bought it to this to show you. Um, I used just like a butter row filler. That was just what I used and skived it down. I think it was like a
Yeah.
1.5 millimeter butter row or something, or 2 mil. I can't remember, but like that thickness is, or should it be the exact same leather for the filler?
As in like the padding on the inside. Is
Yeah,
that what you mean?
yeah,
Um, I tend to like finding softer leather because I think Patero is quite firm.
yeah.
So I like finding softer leather as the filler or the padding, so it's easily more like flexible.
Okay,
Like if you're using like very light padding, like using Patero is okay, like 1 millimeter. But I think like if it gets over like two, it just makes it a bit stiff.
yeah, yeah.
So I think I really like using Pueblo
Oh
or
yeah,
Pueblo. I don't know how to pronounce the word
Pueblo. It took me a while to figure
Pueblo.
it out as well.
Yeah, so I like that because I think it's a bit softer.
Yeah,
It's easy to skive, so you can shape it
yeah,
pretty easily.
yeah. Pueblo,
Um, Pueblo,
Pueblo,
yeah.
Pueblo. It's yeah. I got some of that in
Or even like a chrome tan works really well.
yeah. Does Chrome Dan skive? Is it?
Depends how sharp your knife is, eh?
Yeah,
If you have a sharp knife, it works fine.
yeah. Um, what's your favorite leather?
I like for a watch strap, I really like alligator. It's that it just feels very classy.
Yeah,
Uh, 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 I also really like. There's an Italian calfskin called Swift. It's by the tannery called RMG Primari. So I think RM Leather Supply sells it. It's just like the most supple leather I've ever like touched. It's like
yeah.
so soft.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoy using that. Um, but yeah, alligator, shell cordovan, I like it, but then I think it's not that much appreciated. Like in the watch community, people they're not going to buy a strap because it's shell cordovan. Whereas like it's more like shell cordovan is more like an EDC, or if you like boots or something, that's that's like more popular there.
Yeah, I'm actually quite surprised because I thought it'd be quite.
Yeah, like people who like watches, they just want something that goes well with their watch. They're not like fussed about the leather.
Yeah.
Like the only leather that they would be like that is maybe alligator or crocodile.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Because I've
Yeah,
seen you
because
do
they want something high end.
yeah, because I've seen you do those watch straps with like the holes in them, which look pretty cool.
Oh, the rally straps. So they kind of I think they're honestly pointless. The holes they don't do much besides like decoration.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
for aesthetic purposes only.
yeah.
Um, the rigid like the reason why they were done initially was like race car drivers, rally car drivers will get really hot inside the cars. And then so basically they it was for ventilation, I guess, so you wouldn't be too sweaty.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
that's the like origin story of why they have holes.
yeah. That's interesting. Do Rolexes do they actually have leather bands? Like, can you actually take the, or they just stick with
Mo-
the chinks?
Most Rolexes use bracelets
Yeah.
because I think it's a sports watch. Their most popular watches are all like divers, like the Submariner, or the Explorer is like a adventure watch, so you're going out into the wild.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're not really you're exposed to the elements, so you're not really suited for a leather strap. But some of their like gold pieces or like dress pieces, they're not as popular, but they do suit leather quite well.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it just depends. Like most of the popular Rolexes, it doesn't look that great on leather. It's because
Yeah.
they're really like super bulky watches,
Yeah.
and then just leather's too like slim for it. It's not as like hard looking rugged
Yeah.
as they want.
Okay. Yeah, because I didn't know Rolexes were more of an outdoor. Like you could wear them because of the chinks. That
Yeah,
makes
like
sense.
Rolex is it's quite hard to get now these days.
Yeah. So do you think you'll make any other leather goods besides watch straps?
That's a good question because I think the main limitation right now is time.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got an efficient process for watch straps, and I do have a quite a significant backlog of orders, which I try to keep down to just under 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But I think if I do get time, I will. But then I always get custom requests. Like someone asked me for a wallet or card holder to be made, and I'm like, yeah, I can do it. But then you just have to wait like a month if you're happy to wait that long,
Mm-hmm.
because I can't I can't like sit down and just do it all at once,
Yeah.
right? Because I do like the straps in batches. I've also got like few customers ask for valet trays or like just like watch pouches, which I can do, but it just takes too much time.
Yeah. And also design them as well.
Yeah, or not so much design because they're just like, oh yeah, can you make me one of this? They send me a photo, and I'm like, it's not hard to make, but it's not efficient for me to make it
Yeah. Yeah.
because I don't have the processes. I have to hand cut them or and all that.
Yeah. Um. Do you okay? So, what's the most difficult? I think we probably touched on it, but what's the most difficult leather to
Yeah.
work with? Stingray.
Outside of Stingray, Stingray obviously because it's so firm. it's literally like a stone. I think I actually think shell cordovan is actually hard to work with, especially like Hawaiian shell cordovan
Yeah. Why is
and
that? Because of.
like mainly Hawaiian shell cordovan because it's I don't think it's that like it's kind of vulnerable to scratches. It's very easy to scratch.
Yeah.
Um, like all the marks show very clearly, whereas like Shinky shell cordovan is a bit easier to work with because the marks don't show. It's like hard glazed as the final finish. So it's like not too um it's not like raw in that sense, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. Um Also like skiving shell cordon, I find that to be a bit harder because it's very, very dense.
Hmm.
And then when you skive halfway through, it kind of just tears off.
Yeah, I've had. It's quite amazing how when you skive some leathers, how easily they tear. And like with kangaroo,
Yeah,
you can skive it real thin, and it's still quite tough.
kangaroo leather is very very strong. It's like very durable,
Yeah, yeah, it is.
um, even at very thin weight. So it's actually really good for watch straps. But then I think people just don't appreciate it. So I think like some customers have messaged me saying like, "Oh, why are you using kangaroo leathers? Why are you? It's not sustainable and all that." But kangaroo leather is just a byproduct of the meat because they don't know that we have like kangaroo meat in the markets
Yeah,
in the shops. Like Woolies sells like kangaroo burger patties and all
yeah,
that.
yeah.
So so I guess like they're considered a pest in some areas as well
I
because there's
saw.
so many of them.
I got some kangaroo at home. Actually, I bought some natural, and it's actually really good quality. Like, I was gonna make a wallet with it with the because I'm going in like the Adelaide show this year. So
Oh, nice.
I was going to use some of that Russian calf for. I was just going to make a basic bifold. Use like the Russian calf for the outside. Line it with like a natural kangaroo, and then do the both of the front pockets a Russian calf with like a blue stitching. Just
Oh,
to
nice.
yeah, see what it's like. How do you care? How do you care for your watch strap?
So usually when customers do ask, um, maintenance on watch wraps is pretty minimal because you don't
Yeah,
really like bend it that often. It stays in its shape, like the mold, it molds to your wrist. So usually I tell them to apply conditioner once every 6 months to the front just to prevent any like cracking in the long term. And then every maybe 2 months or so, I just tell them to use a damp cloth and just to wipe the back in case there's any like sweat stains that
hmm
you need, like you have. It just cleans it up. And yeah, usually the straps don't need much maintaining. They last maybe like 3 years or so.
yeah, not too bad
So
actually. So
yeah.
is that with everyday use?
Yeah, I assume like
Yeah,
everyday use. I've worn the same strap maybe just over 2 years now and still looks the only like thing that changes is that the leather has darkened a bit.
yeah,
And then if you just condition the leather itself won't crack at all.
yeah,
It- So yeah, I haven't had an issue with like leather cracking at all.
yeah. Well, what should like how will a watch strap wear down over time? Like, will the stitching go first or
I think the the gluing of the lining on the back of the strap might start to loosen up where it connects at the top, just because that glue it lasts like a few years and then like it starts to maybe come off, but then the stitching holds it in place.
yeah,
The the other one is maybe I think it's actually the part where the buckle goes into the long side of the strap, the holes, because you're always putting in and out, in and out. Sometimes it does like damage the strap there. It does stretch it a bit.
hmm
And also maybe the edge painting, like if you're constantly like scraping the buckle against the edge paint, that specific area of the watch, it's like it might the edge paint might like eventually come off.
yeah.
But I've had a strap for over like 3 years and haven't had any issues.
Will I'll ask you that actually. So with the because yeah, the buckle will be constantly sliding through that strap. Do you have to uh make allowance for the edge paint?
Yeah, so it's actually 1 millimeter smaller on the long side where it slides through
Okay.
compared to the short side. So like 16 millimeters at the buckle, the long side will only be 15 millimeters wide, and then you can add edge paint to that, and it'll be like 15.5. So you have some like leeway, I guess.
Yeah. Do you use dies to cut your watch straps, or do you just do them all by hand?
They're all done by dies now because I've got
Yeah.
a lot of orders, and it's a lot easier to get the shape to be accurate. Whereas if you're hand cutting it all the time, you're not going to get it 100% to be
Yeah,
the same.
exactly.
Um, so yeah, it's just better. The product itself becomes better. It's also more efficient. So I think
Yeah.
it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. I need to get some dies eventually.
Yeah, it makes production a lot
Yeah,
faster,
exactly.
especially if you want to like from a business perspective, like you need to find ways to make it more efficient. So if you're doing like a wallet, for example, if you have all the panels cut out for you, just get the dies. It costs maybe like $200, but
Yeah.
you can make it like you save an hour cutting it by hand.
Yeah, it's actually amazing how much time you use cutting things by hand. Like you can spend like an hour cutting like a full wallet out. And that's just even before you start it. I want to even cutting out like be like to get like huge dies for bags would be cool because it's just like that
Yeah.
would just um
You need a huge clicker press
yeah I
or
know
like you need one of those like industrial ones where you
yeah
it's like hydraulic and you have to press it down.
yeah um yeah.
Maybe
Uh,
one day.
what's the ones that you can pull over and pull down?
Yeah, there's like I can't remember. It starts with L, like
Yeah, it's like lucre. Yeah, I can't remember it. And so, what's your hobbies outside leathercraft?
Um, I spend a lot of time like making leather goods. So when I'm not doing watch straps, I do try to make like other stuff, just
Yeah.
like wallets here and there. But I really enjoy like playing basketball, playing chess.
Oh, playing
Um,
chess. Yeah.
I try to go hiking every so often, like every maybe like 2, 3 weeks.
Yeah.
But the weather has been like quite poor in Sydney. But I do enjoy like going out, trying to force myself to go out because literally I work from my home and then it's literally like sitting down all day. My eyesight's gotten worse and trying to like do things that
Yeah, I
where
know,
you're
because you're
like
like you
outside of the workshop.
exactly like because your eyes are like looking like so close. It's like
Yeah.
to be able to like look a distance is nice to see.
Yeah. So just
It's
going out, I really enjoy that.
yeah.
But yeah,
No, that's awesome. Thanks, Jason, for coming on. I appreciate it.
yeah, thanks for having me. It was really good talking to you about a lot of things.
Yeah, definitely.